A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards, and I'm glad you're with us on the program today. We're going to be talking in just a moment with Dianna Muller from the DC Project. You know, this is a fantastic organization comprised of women from all around the country. I think they've got representatives of 48 of the 50 states, and these are some of the best advocates for the right to keep and bear arms and protecting the right to keep and bear arms that, frankly, Second Amendment supporters have. They recently conducted their 5th fly-in to Washington, D.C. So all of these women with the D.C. Project go to Capitol Hill. They meet with lawmakers, and this is a critical time. I mean, listen, you know, we saw the House approve a ban on so-called assault weapons earlier this year, right? Just back in August, as a matter of fact. We've also seen the passage of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, right, which was billed as the first substantive gun control legislation in 30 years. And of course, that was approved not just by the House, but by the Senate as well. So it's critically important that we are talking to lawmakers. And I'm very curious to find out the reception that the DC Project folks received on Capitol Hill. Let's start there with our conversation with Dianna Muller from the DC Project. Take a look and a listen. I know you guys had you ladies had a ton of meetings while you were there. I'm curious, you know, we have seen the passage of gun control bills this year, right? I mean, the Senate and the House approved that bipartisan gun safety bill. The House approved a ban on so-called assault weapons last month. So how was your reception this time around compared to some of your previous fly-ins into D.C.?
Well, you hit on something very important. We have seen passages, and we had offices tell us about that and how much pressure they felt. For your audience who doesn't maybe know who the DC Project is, we're Women for Gun Rights, and we've kind of found our niche as a counter-visual and counter-voice to Moms Demand Action, who are the women group funded by Bloomberg that is continually demanding that our legislators restrict our rights. And we were hearing from the friendly offices that they were so thick after Uvalde that everybody felt the pressure. So our side needs to understand that there are forces at work that are working overtime diligently to restrict our rights. And it's so important. You know, everybody gets so tired of hearing, this is important, you know, you have to take action, you have to do something. But I'm telling you, these women, these anti-gun groups are on fire. They are motivated. And honestly, I feel a little bit bad for them because I feel like they're being used as pawns in this scheme of disarming America. They want what we want. They want to be safe. And they don't understand. They've been latched onto by these anti-gun groups saying that we're going to save your kids. We're going to provide safety for you. And we all know that that's a lie, that we are our own first responders. And that's why the women of the DC Project feel so passionately about defending the Second Amendment. So our reception on Capitol Hill this year was great, honestly. We got into, I think our final count was about 138 meetings. We had 12 teams of 3 to 5 women, and we scatter and cover Capitol Hill. And we got into anti-offices with some really good meetings. We got into some anti-offices that were kind of rude. We got into anti-offices that were kind of hostile. We had one woman report from Oregon, our Oregon state director. She said that her team sat down with 4 staffers from one of their senator's offices. And when they got done with the introductions, they were like, oh my gosh, we shouldn't do this. This could be confrontational. And she's like, well, we're not here to be confrontational. We're here to, you know, talk about the things that we can agree on and talk about actual safety measures. So they had a great conversation. But I think that Capitol Hill is used to seeing how Moms Demand treats legislators, and they're kind of bullish. So they probably expected us to act the same way, and we don't. We're responsible, we're professional, and just put a fresh face and actual stories of, why we want to be safe and why we want to carry a firearm in order to do that.
And I'm glad that you brought up the messaging here, because you're right. We clearly saw this after Uvalde, where the gun control folks are promising, we're going to protect your babies, right? We're going to protect your kids. All you have to do are take these reasonable, common sense steps that, frankly, if you don't own a gun, well, you don't have to do anything. All you got to do is vote for the politicians that'll vote for this, and you won't be impacted at all. It's just going to be that your kids are going to be safe in schools as long as we, ban these guns and do this and do that. As you say, we all want our kids to be safe. I'm a father of 5. I know so many of the ladies of the DC Project are moms themselves. This false premise that, well, if you don't support our gun control laws, you must care more about your guns than kids, I think is ridiculous. And so for you to say, no, listen, it's about safety, that we all are concerned about safety. That's not where we disagree. It's on how we achieve those policy goals, how we truly protect our kids in school, how we truly fight violent crime. That's where we disagree, because the gun control advocates say, well, the way we do that is to restrict the rights of law-abiding individuals to protect themselves, right? And the DC Project says, no, that's not the answer. Do you, Dianna? I mean, I know you've got a career in law enforcement, so let me ask you, I mean, does the DC Project advocate for things, other solutions that actually work, as opposed to simply trying to, ban our way to safety by stripping us of our Second Amendment rights?
Absolutely. Our time on Capitol Hill this year, we were pushing other programs, non-governmental programs. For mental health, we were pushing Hold My Guns. For school security, we were pushing Faster Saves Lives. And for safety, for education in the kids, we were pushing Kids Safe Foundation. We were like, these are examples of programs within the firearms industry that have meaningful results, that if you really care about safety, you're going to fund these programs. You're not going to continue to fund the restricting of rights and things that don't do it. It blows my mind that people today, 2 years into the violence that we've seen, the rioting, the defunding the police, it's pretty evident to me, common sense to me, is that these policies don't work. We've got evidence, look at the evidence that these policies that are enacted in these liberal cities that are on fire and have the most violent crime. You're telling me you want to push that on the rest of the world? Common sense tells me that they should adopt the laws of the cities that aren't having problems.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm with you. But unfortunately, I think that's going to take at least a change in mindset and maybe a change in political party, because, unfortunately, in a lot of these cities, we have an entrenched Democratic machine, basically. And it's really difficult, I think, for residents of, Philadelphia, for example. They just had their 400th homicide. But they are so entrenched in one party politics that I think it's hard for other viewpoints to even get out there, much less for voters in cities like that to be able to truly make a substantive change, because I don't really think there's a lot of change being offered by the local politicians, unfortunately.
Well, that's why our work is so important. You mentioned Philadelphia. That's why Maj Touré's Black Guns Matter, his work is so important, and that, we're taking it really from a grassroots level back to our communities. So that's why it's so important for everyone in your audience to get engaged. We can no longer sit on the sidelines. What I would like to see is we have a hashtag Teal for 2A, and I want to see a sea of teal at festivals and rallies, and our shirt that says educate, not legislate, and it has an AR on top and AR on the bottom. I mean, those are messaging things that the antis are brilliant at. They're brilliant at the optics game, and they're brilliant. They understand how important it is to have those visual messages every time, at every corner, from the governor signing an anti-gun bill all the way down to your local festivals. So I encourage your audience. We'd love to have you at the DC Project. It's free to join. We'd love to have your support. Like I said, Moms is a $60 million budget in 2020, which was an election year, around 38,000 or 38 million. And that's what we're up against. It's definitely a David and Goliath. If anybody on listening has access to like Elon Musk or some conservative that wants to Bloomberg, I'm all ears. You can introduce me. But yeah, we're growing. We're getting traction. We continue to grow and we continue to influence and strengthening those Second Amendment supporters, constitutional sound legislators. They need to be strengthened because they've been beat up for the past 10 years by these Moms Demand. I read an article that Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand, wrote recently, and she said when she started just 10 years ago, there were Democrats with A ratings from the NRA, and there were Republicans, 0 Fs on the Republicans. And 10 years later, that number is now there are 0 Democrats with A ratings, and there are Republicans with Fs. So that's, it's like, I feel like it's this behind the scenes type thing that's going on, and underground, you don't really see it. It's bubbling, but you don't really see it until it festers. And then we lose Virginia. When we lost Virginia in 2019, that's when I realized, holy cow, we need to be having this in the States. So that's when we kind of really opened our doors to everybody and said, let's go, let's make state directors and have them do the same effort at their state and local level.
And tell me about how that's grown over the past couple of years, because again, I think about the DC project as being sort of federally focused, but if you're now concentrating in the states as well, what kind of impact are you seeing? Where are some of the states where you've seen maybe the biggest growth so far?
Well, I don't even look at the numbers really, but I look at what my state directors are doing, and it's so fantastic to like open up Facebook or open up Instagram and see that like somebody, the Arkansas state director was at the Armed Women of America regional roundup last weekend, and I didn't even know she was going. And I see all these beautiful pictures of, and then people are signing up. So I see what they're doing collectively on social media and things like that, and they're just on fire. So I'm just like, I'm glad to have lit a fire and that other people are taking it and running with it, because it's going to take a huge team in order to counter what's going on. And we're all volunteer. So my goal in the next couple of years is to our budget has definitely doubled over year after year after year, but I'm going to definitely look at hiring some staff and really taking this to the next level.
I'm excited about that because, again, Dianna, I mean, we've talked for years about the DC project since the beginning. And what you all have been able to accomplish, I think, is tremendous. You've got excuse me, I've got a fly flying around me. You've got a great group of women as well, by the way. I mean, you're the folks who are a part of this organization they're not just, passionate activists. They're good people. They really are. And I'm encouraged to see that some of them are even stepping into politics themselves. This is another thing that Moms Demand Action has been doing. They've been training up some of their volunteers to run for office, whether it's Congress, whether it's a local school board. We talked just a few weeks ago with Rebecca Schmoy from Kansas, who is running for state representative this year, a member of the DC project. She's going to be a great addition to the Kansas state legislature. How encouraged are you to see some of the ladies with the DC project? You all are already in the political arena, but actually stepping up and saying, all right, you know what? I don't see anybody better here, so I'm going to run for office, and I'm going to be the change that we need to see.
It's amazing to see these women who, like me, I mean, I was a police officer, I was a professional shooter. I had no intentions of doing what I'm doing right now with the DC project. And to see these women who feel like I want to do something, but I have no idea. We had a lot of new people coming to Washington, D.C. with us this past couple weeks ago, and they had no clue. But to see them grow and to see them like just absorb the energy and then turn it into something like Rebecca is doing. Like you mentioned, Moms Demand is touted to have 170 members running for office. And, we had 2, one lost her primary, but Rebecca won hers. And we're looking forward to seeing her in the Kansas state legislature. I'm a Kansan now. So she's, I'm really invested in her success. Yeah, so it's fun to watch everybody's growth and some of these women, when they come into the DC Project, they don't even know the difference between federal and state legislatures. I mean, we are definitely a product of what our education system has been failing to instill in all of our citizens for several decades. We don't push civics like we should. So the beginning of the DC Project is usually a civics lesson.
It's important. I mean, we got to know it, in order to be effective. Again, the more the merrier. All women who care about the Second Amendment are welcome here. Where can folks find out more information about the DC Project and what you all are doing?
Our website is dcproject.info, info, and they can join, support, like, share. We can see us on Instagram at DC_Project Foundation. And then on Facebook, we are the DC Project because DC Project was taken.
All right. Dianna, thank you again for coming on the program. I'm glad that you had such a successful fly into DC. What's the next big project for DC Project? What should we be looking for?
Oh, well, before we go further, I want to tell you that we had a rally. We have a rally every year, but it's been on the big side of the Capitol. This year we were in the Supreme Court, in front of the Supreme Court. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing because we were so much closer to everybody. Cars driving by, tourists driving by. We had a real live heckler, and I was standing back looking at the entire scene, taking it in and going, you know what? I don't know that I've ever seen women with signs that say, I am my own first responder, standing in front of the Supreme Court. It was so powerful. It was amazing. And it's those kind of interactions that I think is going to, I'd like to do that on a pretty regular basis. Just go out there and stand with signs, because one time I was going into an office and this one little old man is holding a sign, and I read his entire sign while I'm standing there. I mean, he's influencing people. It doesn't take, 2 million people to march on Washington to start spreading that message. So what's next? We are going to, let's see, we're going to work on fundraising. So that's where my attention is focused. And then we've got some events coming up. Shirley Wattrell from Florida is going to be at USCCA in November. So you're going to see us scattered around in the different states. But yeah, we're looking forward to SHOT Show. We want to try to maybe put on a little party there. So we'll see. We'll see how it happens. Excellent.
Well, I'm looking forward to catching up in person at some point in the near future. And Dianna, thank you again to you and all the women with the DC Project for your activism and your engagement. I think it is making a difference, and I hope that there are a lot of folks who are watching today who are inspired to join the organization to be a part of it.
Thank you for all your help, Cam.
Absolutely, Dianna. Dianna Muller with the DC Project joining us here on Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. Appreciate Dianna joining us on the program today, and we will keep you up to date with what's going on at the DC Project here on future programs. Right now, let's turn our attention to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We'll start there with a really, really disturbing story out of Indianapolis, Indiana, where a man named Orlando Mitchell has now been charged with murder, invasion of privacy, as well as unlawful possession of a firearm by a domestic batterer after murdering a woman, the mother of his child, allegedly at a daycare in Indianapolis. And this is a guy who unfortunately was known to police. He was also known to the victim, 32-year-old Crystal Walton. As a matter of fact, WTHR in Indianapolis reports that Walton had actually taken out an order of protection against Orlando Mitchell August 6th of this year, just less than 2 months ago. Court records indicate that Mitchell contacted Walton wanting to pick up his son a day early. And when the woman told him that wasn't possible, he showed up anyway at the home where she was staying. The mother said that Mitchell allegedly forced open the door and entered the home. When the woman told Mitchell that she was going to call police, she said that Mitchell responded with, "If you call the police, it'll be the last thing you do." She called his mother instead on speakerphone. Mitchell left the house after about 5 minutes, and then she reported the incident to police. Mitchell charged with the breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, as well as violating a no-contact order and intimidation. In March of last year, he was involved in a domestic battery incident. In fact, that no-contact order was levied as a result of that domestic battery incident in March of 2021. Again, there's so much wrong with this story here, including the fact that Mitchell's mother apparently was at least somewhat aware of her son's threats, according to court documents. Mitchell's mom came to the scene of the shooting at the daycare and told officers that she hadn't spoken with her son in a month because he had threatened to kill Crystal Walden and make it a, quote, murder-suicide. Court documents claim that she told officers that her son had told her if he couldn't see his son, she wasn't going to be in his life. His mom was able to give officers a description of his car. No word on whether or not the mom actually told officers about this a month ago, which could have, I won't say would have, but could have, which resulted in Mitchell's case being taken a little more seriously. You know, unfortunately, what we know is that an order of protection is not a suit of armor. It's a piece of paper for those who are willing to violate that order. In this case, you have an individual who is not lawfully allowed to possess a firearm, violating these order of protections, and again, allegedly murdering the mother of his child. In a case in which I think the argument can be made that Mitchell should have been behind bars from the get-go. And unfortunately, that was not the case here. And a woman has lost her life needlessly. Today's armed citizen story from Florida, Escambia County, Florida, where a convenience store clerk is alive today because he had a firearm when he was confronted by an armed robber with a shotgun. Yeah, a guy walks into this convenience store armed with a shotgun. He's walking around. Little did he know that the clerk had seen him on surveillance video outside with the shotgun, and he ran to the back and grabbed a pistol of his own. As the robber started walking around the clerk and the store, he was holding his weapon. Sees the clerk holding a weapon, and all of a sudden, Rakeem Stephen Tate says, I don't mean no harm. I'm just not from around here. I got a big bleeping gun, but I'm not from around here is what I'm saying. I'm from Chicago, bro. Yeah. Then he asked the store clerk, what kind of gun is that you got there? And then Tate slowly walks out of the store. The Escambia County Sheriff's Office said in a release that words seem to fail you when your felony attempt is thwarted by lawful and righteous force. Yeah. This happened back on September the 9th. Tate was taken into custody about a week later, September 15th, in Santa Rosa County, Florida. He is now again facing multiple charges. Thankfully, that convenience store clerk was unharmed and able to return home at the end of his shift that night. Finally, today, our good deed of the day. And this one, I got to tell you, I picked this one pretty much just for the headline. I'll be honest with you. From Chattanooga, Tennessee, police blotter. Officer helps dog left in hot car. Woman has pants on after all. Yeah, I mean, how can you not click that headline, right, when you see that story? So first things first, let's get to the officer in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing to help a dog left in a hot car. This was, you know what? Doggone it. I just realized this was from back in June. Yeah, I don't know why it popped up as today's headline, but this is from back in June. You know what? I'm still going to do it anyway, just because. Anyway, so back in June in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a police officer responded to a parking lot where a dog was left in a vehicle. The officer found the black Honda Civic with a dog inside, panting heavily. The windows were cracked, but not cracked enough. But the officer was able to unlock the car, provide the dog with some water. A nearby Thai restaurant, Thai Smile in Chattanooga, gracious enough to give the officer a plastic bowl with ice, and the officer filled that bowl with water, left it outside the vehicle for the dog. Officer wet the dog's ears, observed it drinking for several minutes. There was a phone number of the dog's collar, but the owners apparently could not be reached. So in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Back in June, we thank that officer for his very good deed. Now, about that woman who, as it turns out, was wearing pants, right? I'm not going to leave you hanging on that. Woman has pants on after all. This was the very last story in the police blotter, Chattanooga, back in early June. I don't have a lot of information. Police called to East 23rd Street, where it was reported that a woman was walking in an alleyway with no pants on. Police found the woman, who was wearing very dark-colored pants, and identified her. She said she didn't need police, fire, or EMS assistance of any kind. Not even the fashion police. So there you go. Woman with pants on. I got to tell you, if that's the type of stuff that pops up in the police blotter in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I live in a really safe part of the country anyway, but if I ever look to move, public safety is top of mind. I think I'm going to be, certainly on my short list will be the city where a presumably pantsless woman who actually was wearing pants is a major part of the police blotter. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. Again, I want to thank you for being a part of the program. We'll be back tomorrow talking about a new study taking a look at gun sales and violent crime rates, whether or not there's any connection between the two. Here's a hint. No. These researchers found that there is actually no connection because as gun sales were rising, violent crime is decreasing. And we're going to delve into the details of that study on the next edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. I would also encourage you to check out bearingarms.com. In the meantime, we will be covering all of the latest Second Amendment news and information throughout the day on the website. If you like what you see, you can also become a VIP member. All you have to do is go to bearingarms.com/subscribe. Use the promo code GUNRIGHTS. And not only will you be supporting the independent pros Second Amendment journalism we do at Bearing Arms, but we're going to give you content that you won't find anywhere else. Exclusive news stories and analysis because your support does matter. And it really does make a difference. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow with another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.